I'm here today with Jack Lifton. How are you, Jack?
I'm fine, thank you.
Jack, let's start with you've just returned from France. You were there for what, 10 days? Can you tell us what you were really doing there?
What I was there for was making visits to people who are offering to separate and purify rare earths with differing aspects of the same technology. They are the companies I visited are competitors of each other, and I can tell you that France is way ahead of North America in this technology. There's no one in North America, in my opinion, who can even hold a candle to either of the two French companies I visited. Now, I'm skating around the names of them. That's correct, but let's say that they have been doing this a long. Both of them have been doing this a very long time. One of them commercially, one of them just new to the commercial space, but a very long time player in rare earth research.
All right, so then let's discuss your most recent article, which was I think #1 or #2 last week about processing, not just
Yeah.
production. Really, being key to survival for the rare earth juniors that are getting to the next
Yes.
stage. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? I don't know if there was anything you'd like to add because there was a lot of comments that came after that article.
Well, what I'm seeing here is that we've entered the second phase of the rare earth revolution, so to speak. Uh, and I just actually yesterday talked to an institutional investor in New York who said to me, rare earth investment is coming back. It's warming up, but it's entirely focused on companies that can show they have an end game. They have lined up a process, or they've joint venture with somebody who has a process to go downstream. And this was in the context of looking at processing companies on their own as investments. And for the first time, I was told that the rare earth investors in New York are now open to the idea of investing in a processing company. This was a big first time I've heard this, because normally they say no, if it isn't Molycorp, it isn't rare earths. It's like, I forget, there's a comedian who says if it's something, it must be Tuesday. Oh, it's if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. So what's his name used to say that? Okay, well, with these guys, they used to say if it's rare earths, it's Molycorp, and this is now going. Thank God, it's going away, and we're finally getting people to talk about the rare earth space for what it is: a inclusive tent of many, many acts.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here, Jack, and give
Now,
us an example of a rare earth company with an excellent end game run that they're looking
well,
at, that you hear
oh,
people discussing positively.
I don't want to give any details, but I will name for you the companies that I think are doing very well in this game. One is Texas Rare Earths, of which, of course, I'm a director. So another is Ucore. Another is Rare Element Resources. Um, quite frankly, Tasman's looking good. Um, I have high. I'm very interested in the companies in Australia that, in particular, in Northern Minerals. I really think that's a winner. And all of this, I can't, because I have too many non-disclosure agreements. So I don't want to get into details. Let's say this is based on my knowledge of the processing world and where these companies stand with the processing world. As you know, a friend of mine who's attending the Critical Materials Conference in Denver today sent me an email that he'd never seen such a lack of uh, collegiality, he called it. He said, these guys don't even want to talk to each other. They're all at odds with each other. And I said, that's the problem. They need to get together. For example, it would be wonderful for all the American companies or North American companies to get together and finance one or two central processing stations. This is not anti-capitalist. It's not anti-competitive. It's actually a good idea. But they're not doing that, because these conferences tend to be like I Spy conventions rather than networking situations. I did want to say that today, so now I've said it. All right. The point is, the companies I've named, and maybe there are others that I'm not familiar with, are really into phase two. Let's put it this way: I would choose them as survivors at this point, and It's not to say others aren't in that situation, but I'm not aware of it. I think I'm as aware of the processing world for rare metals and rare earths as anybody else around. And what I know is the companies I've named are looking pretty good to me.
Okay, so obviously you forgot Alkane and
Oh, no, but
Arafura.
wait, all right, okay, let's go back. Alkane is a polymetallic company that has rare earths. I've said before, and I'll say again, it's a wonderful company. It's absolutely the role model for all of these guys that think they have polymetallic deposits. It's done a wonderful job. It's no longer in my category. Alkane is an operating company. I'm talking about juniors, okay? And as far as our referral goes, I've been there. I've been to their deposit. It's a wonderful deposit. Very smart guys. It's a light rare earth deposit. I'm sorry if I didn't mention this, but I'm really looking at heavy rare earth potential producers, and especially at those who have some of the magnet materials such as neodymium, praseodymium, also along with the heavy rares, making them the perfect blend.
Arafura's stock was up 25% last month, and they have been marketing heavily that their leading rare earths are actually magnet materials.
Okay.
Jack. So I just
Okay.
want to clarify that. You know, there's only so much information one person can be aware of on this planet.
Correct.
So I wanted to also thank Arafura Resources, because they're the ones that have been really drawing my attention to the fact that the stocks that are moving in the rare earth sector right now are indeed the ones that are leading with magnet materials. So I just wanted to add that. Also, of course, we did do a couple of stories this last month on the legislation that is before Congress right now, the Bill H.R. 4883. I'd just like to what are your thoughts on that particular bill and its chances for success?
Well, I don't think that a natural resources bill so narrowly focused as that one has much of a chance in this particular Congress. However, time is of the essence for people. They're in cash burn. I understand that. We're going to have a new American Congress in January. I don't know if it'll be much different from this one, but it may well be. And we may see a lot more motion on critical materials, strategic materials, and so forth. The bill you're talking about is an excellent idea. America could certainly use a central rare earth processing station, no question about it. And something that was run, let's say, or financed by the government would be great, because it would do away with the internal dissension of many companies trying to do the same thing. But it seems to be focused on really also creating a solution for the thorium problem. What do we do with all the thorium coming out of monazite deposits and deposits that are rich in thorium, like in the Northwest Territories or Idaho? What do we do with that stuff? So the answer here is, well, we're going to make it a focus of a bill. I don't think that's the right way to go. I'm not saying it's not a good idea to put the thorium in one place or get the U.S. government involved, but here's what people don't understand. It is involved. The United States government stores thorium from various uranium money in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and in Hanford, Washington. So companies that want to handle this problem and have a small amount of material can make arrangements with these American federal institutions. I don't think we're going to create a new thorium repository or develop thorium-based reactors in America in the near future. Okay, so again, I'm all for this bill, but I think the focus has to be on a central refinery, not on anything to do with thorium. That's just my opinion.
All right, and then the next thing I wanted to ask you about is, I know you have been following, the electric car industry for many years, and of course, lithium and graphite are topics that are doing very well on InvestorIntel. I wanted to know if you had any recent comments about all the Tesla information that's in the news and your thoughts on it.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Tesla, because I think their cars are too expensive. Because most of the people I know are not going to be buying a car for between $60,000 to $125,000. The Tesla's a very nice car. It's got a great range. I just saw one, my first one I ever saw in Troy, Michigan yesterday. And the guy's plate said, "My Tesla." So I guess he's proud of it. But it was a beautiful car. It rides like a dream. It's great. It's just expensive. Now, if Mr. Musk's idea, and he says it is he's going to reduce the price of the battery, which is the most expensive component of that car by a long shot, by building a gigafactory using, for our viewers are interested, huge amounts of lithium, cobalt, nickel, graphite, and that's great. That's great for the producers of nickel, cobalt, lithium, graphite. Okay, and Panasonic joining in is even a better sign. I hope the factory gets built. I hope they order all kinds of raw materials. I also hope that other manufacturers start making electric cars as nice as Tesla for less money, so that Tesla goes broke, but we have a lot of good electric cars out there at reasonable prices that are getting batteries out of gigafactories that are consuming large amounts of lithium, graphite, cobalt, all the things we can produce outside of China, and that we need to have drivers to produce. Can I bring up a topic which you didn't bring up?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Thank you. I was thinking about this the other day, and I came to this conclusion. Here's what's wrong with all of the discussions of critical materials and strategic materials and supply and demand. For the rare earths, demand is prospective. It's not, growth is not automatic. It's not going to happen. Even I've said this, well, if the world gross national product increases, gross domestic product, then I suppose the sales of rare earths will increase. But that's not what's happening. We're stuck. We have enough rare earths being produced right now for what we're doing. In order to have growth, we have to target the heavy rare earths and the magnet materials until there is a reliable supply, not just secure, reliable, okay, which means economically produced. Nobody has to subsidize it. Until that happens, people aren't going to commit to producing more devices using rare earths. So we have a problem here. Which comes first, the cart or the horse? This is not a traditional problem in manufacturing. This is where we are. The demand for rare earths is prospective. It depends on producing them first. That's not normal. Normally, people in manufacturing say to somebody, "Hey, I got to have more of that lithium stuff," and they say, "Well, okay, I'll draw down my inventories, or I'll build a new mine or something." We're not hearing that for rare earths. The industrial complex of the world has to get its head straight, has to get its act together, and say to these people, we want to spread cell phones and television sets and all the things that use rare earths all over the world. You guys have got to produce this stuff. And I'll tell you what, there are revolutions going on right now in processing, lowering the cost dramatically. We know where the real good heavy rare hard rock deposits are outside of China. We just named them previously, these companies. We've got to get this stuff going. So we need to everybody get together, end user, industry, and the producers, and make a decision about what we're going to do. And we need to finance this stuff and get it going. Because if we don't, there isn't going to be a rare earth future, guarantee it. The Chinese are already figuring they're running out of heavy rare earths. That's why they're buying in. This is not about controlling the price. This is a command economy exercising its prerogative to maintain the stability of its national production base. This is something we can't do. We don't have collegiality here in our companies. We all want to screw each other, okay, and get the business. In China, they do too, but the national government supervises and superintends. China internally is a socialist communist nation. Externally, they're acting as a capitalist nation with Chinese characteristics. We're being suckered by this. That's my opinion.
Jack, let me ask you another question. I appreciate the discussion about team play in rare earths.
Yes.
That's why
Yes.
I've always called it the Rare Earth Fight Club. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it pretty much accurately represents this industry. And that's the reason why I'm so incredibly proud of ourselves and the community that we've built, because we do need a community in order to achieve these goals. Now, for us to come together to make this happen, we need a location and we need an event in order for that to occur.
Yes.
Do you know of one that's currently happening? We used to have events, and we now do not have events that have attracted the overall industry. There's a large one happening in China coming up that I believe Asian Metals is behind.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, quite frankly, we need to concentrate on North America and Europe. And I'm not aware of any events coming up in North America or Europe that would bring us all together. The Chinese don't need us to get together; they're all together already. Okay, so yes, there's a conference of the Chinese Association of Rare Earth Industries in Chengdu in September. And in Singapore, I think Metal Events and Roskill are have a conference in November. I'd like to know where is the gathering where we can have some team playing events here in North America.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I'd like to follow up on the Thorium article that we did. Jim Kennedy sent us a very extensive interview, which I thought was very insightful. And I called it the 800-pound gorilla in the room because a very well-known CEO, now chairman of a major rare earth company, had stated that this was the 800-pound gorilla in the room several years ago that no one wants to discuss. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I think that from the point of view of rare earth mining, most thorium issues are entirely manageable. I really do. What I'm saying is, let's not get carried away and shift the focus to thorium. If a deposit has too much thorium, it'll be uneconomical unless thorium becomes a product. It's as simple as that. No further discussion needed. If I can't sell my thorium, then I have to manage it. I have to put it in a depository. I have to bury it back in the mine. There are various things you can do, and all these things are costly. All right. So if you look at something like Molycorp has fairly low thorium, they manage it. Linus has lower thorium than Molycorp. They manage it, but look at all the trouble they had because of it, even though they have very, very little of it. 22,000 tons production per year would produce 51 tons of thorium and 1 million tons of aggregate. That was still a big issue among Malaysian environmentalists. All right. Most of the deposits I've looked at are very low thorium, the ones we've talked about, the heavy rare earth deposits. The problem comes from some of the deposits that are extremely high in thorium. One of the companies in America actually started, it was called Thorium Energy, and it changed its name. It's become other things. But the reason for that was that it had a lot of thorium. I believe that some of the Canadian companies have significant thorium. And it's not that it can't be handled, don't get me wrong. But until I wrote an article about this about 10 years ago, until I see how you handle your uranium and thorium, I can't be very positive about your project, because that's an 8,000-pound gorilla in the economic world. You've got to handle it. You cannot ship your material anywhere unless that is first handled, so to speak.
Well, I was saving this question for last. The Molycorp earnings come out on Wednesday, close of market. Are you planning on being on that phone call, and what do you expect? Do you expect we'll have a positive or negative from these announcements on Wednesday?
I really actually don't. How can I know their internal dynamics? But the press, the technical press, the resource press, has been saying it's going to be another very large loss, and even though this loss may be due to writing down goodwill. What I don't understand is how you can continue to have losses and be optimistic. I mean, it's one thing for a friend of mine says after 3/4 of losses, you can forget about a company. Well, we've had 8 or 9 quarters here, and yet there's such a cheering section in the blogosphere about, well, that none of that matters. The only thing that matters is profitability. The only thing. But none of that matters for those who are in love with various projects in which they've invested. I understand that, but maybe they shouldn't have. And I'll tell you one last thing. Bonds. Bonds are a real good indicator of a company's health. And look at just now. Having said that, if you believe that, take a look at the Molycorp bonds and tell me why you would invest in Molycorp. I'm sorry. I know they won't like this, but how long do we have to pretend that this is a good project? It isn't.
As always, Jack, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome, Tracy. Anytime.